Hello. I was just playing around. I'm going to start a new segment on my channel that I'm going to call Guitar Talk. And I'll create a playlist called Guitar Talk. And on those videos, I want to talk about guitars, setting them up, playing them, different scales that I use to play various leads and things like that. And I might get into key transposition and everything. Now, before you get nervous, you might think, "Oh, great music theory." No, I'm not going to talk about music theory. I do understand it a bit, not like some, but I can read music very well, and I read music to play saxophone and things like that. But I'm talking about simple, basic tools that anyone with any kind of ear for music should be able to learn to implement into their playing styles. And so I'll be talking about that. And I'm going to, in this video, I plan to introduce this guitar. I did not make this one. This is one that I purchased. I love it very much. And I will explain a little bit about it and the process of setup on a guitar to improve its playability. And then I also am going to show how to build a 2-octave melodic scale out of a G chord, just a simple G chord. And then of course you could play in any key based on where you move your capo up and down the neck out of that G chord. And I'll be talking about that at the very end and just mention the process of moving the capo up and down, and even also offer, I'll try to remember to do it at the end, but I'll do it now also. I, years ago, designed my own chart for capoing and to really for others to be able to use as well. And it was one of the appendix pages in a mandolin book I had written called Chasmania, I think it was. But in any case, I just thought, well, I'll be happy to email that chart to anyone who emails me or messages me on the YouTube channel with their email address and says, hey, and say, I'd like one of those key transposition charts. I was talking about my key transposition chart. I will give that to you if you ask for it. And also a capo position chart based on your chords and where you place the capo, what keys those become. So when we think about using a capo to change keys and all that sort of thing, once again, just let me know, give me your email address, and I'll send you a copy of both the key transposition chart, how to figure out what chords become when they transpose to a different key, and also a capo chart that talks about various chords and what they become based on their position of the capo up and down the neck of the guitar. Be happy to share that with anyone that's interested. And so those are some of the things we're going to be talking about. And I might occasionally even talk about, mindset and philosophies of playing guitar, or attitude is a lot of it. So in all that, my goal, I would hope that everyone would just have a lot of fun and fall in love with playing the guitar and not get stuck thinking they can't go beyond it, and that it isn't a chore. It's pleasure, it's fun, it's a hobby, it's great entertainment, it's all of those things. So let me start by talking about this guitar in front of me. Yes, and well, you can see the wall behind me as well. You know that I build instruments, and I built my own guitars, and they've come out very well, and I've built some nice guitars that sound good and play well, and all of that. But I also have bought guitars at a time or two, and before I was building a lot of guitars, I bought this particular guitar. And my approach to purchasing an acoustic guitar is acoustic electric. Was I watched a lot of YouTube videos of guitar players playing largely looking for finger style and flat picking leads, and playing this instrument and compared to other instruments acoustically to see what the sounds were like and what I was looking for in sound. I even complained within this company's brand the difference between what you'd call a parlor guitar. This is a dreadnought or the jumbo, and I do have a super jumbo, an extra super jumbo that I built out of a acoustic bass that sounds great, and I'll be talking about that build down the road. But in all that process, I found I really like the sound of these instruments unplugged on the videos. And then I heard some with them plugged in, and it has Fishman electronics in it. And you can see it, maybe you can see on the label. If not, you can see it on the headstock. This is a Gretsch, and I'll take the tuner off. This is a Gretsch, and this is what's called a Gretsch Rancher. That's the design. This is a Gretsch Rancher Dreadnought. Back when I bought it, it was, I want to say 300 and change, pushing 400, I don't recall. But I felt that was a tremendously good price. I do know, I can't remember the exact price now. I had looked at them a while back just out of curiosity. I do know they're more. But everything is, and they're still an excellent buy. Things I like about this guitar, I don't normally go out for gold hardware, or I hadn't for a lot of years, but lately I notice I even install it on some of my builds because I kind of like the look, and now that you're getting a lot of stainless gold hardware, I like it a little better. So this came with the gold hardware, and it's a nice look. I don't know if you can see it on the video. There's a slight bow in the back, which I really like. I was looking for something that wasn't just flat backed, because that, I can see it here. I don't know if you can see it, but that little bow helps improve the sound quality and volume a lot of times. So I was looking for that. It's got a spruce top, of course. I thought the triangle sound hole was just a neat look. And a nice bridge. I kind of wanted a sunburst finish. All of those kinds of things were things I was looking for. I like the what's called the thumbnail fret markers. So these were some of the things I was looking for. One of the things that Gretsch Guitars does primarily these days is they build a lot of kind of classic reissues of the things they used to build. And so that's kind of their focus. And when I was a young guy, you know, in high school, and I'd see people playing Gretsches, I just fell in love with them. And then, of course, you know, Mr. Guitar Chet Atkins played a big Gretsch a lot, and so, you know, and there were other famous groups, and they were playing the old Gretsches, and just, you know, that was, you know, for me, that was one of those guitars that was a thing to own. There's certain signature guitars like that you think, oh, I'd love to own one. Well, long story short, I bought this. And what I'll tell you about this, I like the tone. I didn't set up my amp to show you what it's like plugged in, but it's got great electronics in it, and it sounds really nice plugged in. And like I said, they're good Fishman electronics. And they do a very nice job with it. So that's the guitar. Maybe it sounded a little like a Gretsch commercial. I wasn't trying to do that. I just really like it, and I think it's a wonderful instrument. Right out of the box, this guitar played beautifully. You know, it's not uncommon when I mean, that's not the only guitar I've ever purchased. You know, just in case you want a quick history, I started playing guitar. I was 10, 11 years old, and my first guitar, I'm sure I was 11, and one of my buddies had some cheap knockoff electric guitar thing that was in pieces. I mean, there was a neck, there was some electronics, there was some kind of weird chrome pick guard, there was a body. You know, it was just a bunch of pieces. And he said he'd sell it to me, and I said, 1971. I said, well, what do you want for it? He says, well, what do you got? And I reached my pocket. I had $1.69. I kid you not. I remember to this day, I had $1.69. I said, I got $1.69. It's yours. I gave him $1.69. And I took this, I was so thrilled. I took this box of pieces home. And fortunately, my dad was a great guy with that sort of stuff, being a mandolin player and a real handy fellow. I told him I wanted to put it back together and get it working. And in that process, he taught me how to sand the neck and refinish it with lacquers and all of that, and that's what I did. I mean, he would check it. No, you got to sand it more. You got to do this. You got to do that, and I had to refinish the neck completely, and then the pick guard was all dented up and messed up, and so he designed he drew out the old pick guard on a piece of like 1970s style Formica for kitchen countertop stuff, and cut that out as a pick board, as a pick guard, and put the pickup in it, and taught me how to solder it and all this kind of stuff. Put it together. Lo and behold, that thing worked. And I showed up and I was playing it in church, and of course my friend couldn't believe it. It was a great, fun experience. So from 1971 to now, I've been messing with instruments. That was my first experiment at putting something together, and in that process, I've owned some guitars, and I've set up a lot of guitars for other people who've asked me to fix them, and some really beautiful high-end instruments, and I've built some very beautiful instruments, in my opinion, and so I know about them, and I'm not the greatest luthier in the world. I'm also not the greatest musician in the world. I get by, I think, and I understand the principle pretty well, and I just really want to share it. And so that's what I'm doing here. So this Gretsch Rancher came out of the box extremely playable. And for years, I didn't touch it. I've had it for quite some time, and I didn't touch it. I didn't make any adjustments. The neck relief, everything was just where it needed to be. The bridge height and the nut height with the strings, everything was just right, and it just played like a dream. And that's good news when that happens. It doesn't always. Sometimes you buy a new guitar. I bought new guitars, name brand instruments that immediately needed work, and very high quality, high name instruments. And I don't want to say them, because I'm not trying to trash, makers of beautiful instruments that sometimes people get them and the strings are way high and you got to adjust the saddle and get it playable and do all these things. So I thought it'd be a good intro for me to talk about just some simple things that you would do to adjust that. Now you might be thinking, well, Charles, you bought the guitar, it was already perfect. What are you talking about adjusting it? I changed it. It took me a long time, but I made two little changes, three really. So the first thing you'll notice is the bridge pins in this are brass. They're gold-plated brass bridge pins, and the saddle is gold-plated brass instead of bone. And guess what? The nut is gold-plated brass. And so I did make those changes. And in the process of that, there's adjustment that takes place. And you might ask why I chose to go with gold-plated brass. Well, for one, it looks fancy. And that's kind of fun, but really adding the density of the brass to the bridge and to the nut, I believe, gave the instrument more sustain, and it gave it a sense of clarity with depth. It sounded great before. I think it sounds better now. There's a brightness and a warmth that both come through automatically by adding that density and clarity. And one of the arguments for a brass nut is that your open strings will sound a lot like your fretted strings because your frets are made of brass, so it's more consistent. So that's what I did, and so in the process, I had to I had to adjust the saddle height. And well, the first thing I did was adjust the nut height. And so I had to grind it down and get it where it would come low enough. And what I did, and often do, uh, when I build an instrument, I always put a 0 fret in because it takes the guesswork out of the nut height, to be honest with you. That if you have what I call a 0 fret, then there's a consistency of height past that fret all the way up the neck. And to duplicate that, I put my capo, and this is spring-loaded D'Addario capo I've had for quite a while. I like it because you adjust the tension that's on the capo. Helps with a lot of those intonation problems people might have. And now they're making them with tuner attachments, which are way cool, but I don't have one of those. So I just put that there, and I used a feeler gauge and just slid it under the fret, which for mine in this case was 0.008. And so then I just worked the nut down till the feeler gauge went over this fret right here and measured 0.008. That's where I wanted it, and there are other people will want it differently. I don't get a lot of fret buzz when I play, so I like everything close in action. And so even on my acoustics, generally the action is right there with an electric. So the next step would be to adjust your string height at the 12th fret. And to do that, you have to pull the pins, take the saddle out, guess, mark it, grind it flat, put it in there, measure it, and it's a process. And generally what you want is 6/64 of an inch at the fat E string, your low E string, and about 3 to 4/64 of an inch at your high E string, and that's what you're trying to get on an electric. This is right in there, and so, but because it's a fixed saddle all the way through and not individual strings, you have to kind of work with that. So that's what I did, and a lot of it, and this was with brass, so no less. I just set a file down and I just worked it down to the line, put it in, measure it, and I just worked at it. And sometimes you sacrifice strings at that, but you can do this. It's not that difficult. And in the process of dealing with this segment on Guitar Talk, people can email me or message the YouTube channel any questions you have. If I can answer them, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you the truth that I can't answer or I don't know. And when we talk about remarks on the YouTube channel, we don't put up with rude or unpleasant comments. That's no way for friends to act. And so, if you're one of those kind of folks, your comments are just going to get removed and no one will ever see them. So let's not do that. And then the next step for string height adjustment. So I keep things moving here. These are just like cheap feeler gauges for spark plug and point adjustment that you buy at the hardware store. The next thing is neck relief. You put your capo on the first fret position, and then I hold it down at the 14th fret, and then on the 8th fret, you want to be somewhere between, you want to be able to get a feeler gauge under that string that ranges anywhere from 0.005 to 0.020. This one's 0.008. It's funny how I managed to get everything that close, and it's working. And periodically you have to adjust neck relief depending on where you live, weather, types of strings you use, etc. So then what you want to do is find the notch for your adjustable neck. Now many acoustics have it in here, and you'll see an Allen head there. This particular one has it on the headstock. So you take this plate off and you stick your Allen wrench in there, and all your guitar necks are created with a slight bow in them. And as you tighten the truss rod, the steel truss rod that goes up the neck, very gradually I might add, you tighten a little, take your time, don't rush it. You can take days doing that if you like. You don't want to ruin an instrument. If you're uncomfortable, then pay someone to do it. But if you think you want to try doing it, just be careful. Just take your time. And so you tighten, and then maybe the next day you measure it. Let it adjust to and tighten it. Tightening it flattens the neck out, and you don't want to go so far that it's going the other way. That's destructive. You just want to get it to where you get something between 0.005 and 0.020 on the 8th fret when you capo here and push the 14th fret down. So that's what you're looking for. If it's too flat already and you need more space, then you loosen the truss rod. Now some instruments, you know, the reason that the tolerances for the neck relief are different people play differently. Some people get a lot more fret buzz by how they play than others, and that's fine. It's just how people are, and frets are different, and all these things are different. If you have a really good neck and really true frets, that's another topic I'm going to save for another day. It's a little more involved in instrument repairs, truing a set of frets, but I've done it and I'm happy to talk about it. You know, if you're coming up here and the purpose of relief is that up here you still get a clear tone. If you come up here and you're getting buzzed, then you need a little more relief in your neck, and that's what's happening, unless you need to true the frets, and you're not going to find out about that in this video. So that's a basic quick setup thing. Feel free to ask questions. That's what I look for when I'm setting up my personal guitars to play. The other thing I'll talk about is I tune my guitars a half a step low. And I don't know if you've ever used an app like the Guitar Tuner. It actually has it in there. It's called Guitar -1. And I tune mine -1. So it's a half step, it's called, but it's 1 fret lower than the standard tuning. And that changes things, and I have a reason for doing that I'm going to explain. And I'm putting my picks on my fingers. I can flat pick too, and I'll talk about picks down the road, but normally on a guitar, a standard guitar tuning, this chord I'm playing, I'll do it in a way that people recognize more. I play my chord a little with different fingers, and there's a reason for that. We'll talk about that some other time. But there's a G, but on this guitar it's actually an F sharp because it's a half a step lower. And so if I want to play standard tune on a guitar, I would capo 1 and I'd be in a standard tuning, which I'm going to do in a little bit when I show you a scale, so that if you want to try to practice that scale, we'll be in the same key. The reason I do that is I like to run a little bigger string. That's my personal taste. And you know, if you want to know what kind of strings I'm using right now, feel free to message me. But well, I can't remember the brand name now, but they're a light medium gauge actually. So they're a little stocky. They're phosphorus bronze. These happen to be hand wound, and I love hand wound strings. I think they have a completely better sound than machine wound strings. So I play hand wound strings for that reason. I don't care honestly how long they last. You know, when you're talking about, I think I get them 3 for $17 really. So when you're talking about that, if I had to change every month, it's worth it to me to have a good sound. I don't change every month, but it would be. So I like to play a bigger string. I think it has a better sound. It's less stringy and not so thin. The tones come out better by having a little more gauge on the string. By detuning it a fret, half a step, it still allows me to manipulate the strings the way I want. So that's the purpose of that. I can have a little bigger string. I also think with detuning it, the strings vibrate a little more, and I personally think I get a little more warmth and volume out of it. So that's all why I do that. Now, let's just talk for a second about attitude, and then I want to teach a scale, and I'll leave you alone. Um, I think as guitar players, we always want to stay humble, and that, that's an important feature to learning to play. That I have well, I guess he's kind of a friend, acquaintance. You know, he stayed at my house a couple of times when we had him at the church, and we got to know each other pretty well. Chuck Gerard told me a joke, and you probably don't even, you may not know who he is. You could. I mean, he is like kind of like the grandfather of Christian rock, and he had a group called the Hundales back in the '60s that did Little Honda and all that kind of junk. But he told me a joke, and that's what we're getting to. And the joke it was, how many guitar players does it take to change a light bulb? 11. 1 to change the bulb, and 10 to look at it and say, I could have done that. And I think it's funny because it kind of displays the guitar player attitude sometimes, that every guitar player is more concerned with proving that they're as good as the next guitar player than learning to become a better guitar player. And I think we should have humility. Let's just learn. Let's be simple about that. And so I think attitude in guitar playing is really important. My faith as a Christian and a pastor comes into it a lot for me. I worship the Lord God with this instrument and my others, and I want to do it well. There's a psalm that says, play skillfully before the Lord, so that matters to me. And I also believe that he helps me. And so I would say, if you're wanting to learn new things, whether it's building guitars or adjusting them, working on them, or playing them, or even singing them, don't be afraid to pray and say, it was simple prayers. God, make me a better guitar player for your glory. Just pray that. He'll do it. You know, just don't be afraid. And so we'll talk about some of those things as we go on. But let me show you the scale, because I'm rambling and there's no reason for that. So I'm going to put my capo on the first fret. Leave your guitar open unless you're tuning the way I tune. And so if you're tuned as a standard guitar, I'm going to use the fingers I'm used to. This is a G chord, right? I play it like this. And next video, if I remember, we'll talk about why I do that. But here's a G chord. Your G chord should sound the same. If I took my capo off and I moved down, it'd be a F sharp, as I said. So here's the scale. And all I'm doing, and I'm going to talk through it in just a moment, but it sounds like this. And it starts with your G chord and you work your way up there. Now the point of that scale is, if I go up here, because my guitar is my guitar, I'm in B flat. And I could play that scale and be in B flat. And those are 2 octaves worth of notes that are going to be in any song in that key. And getting back down to G. And so you could, with the capo chart, you could figure out how to use that to play in various keys. So getting back here to G, I'm going to get the camera zoomed up on my fingers, and you'll get to see it. And I'll talk through each motion. And I'm going to do it once, and I'm only going to go up and to the very end, which is this. And I'm going to tell you how to play that, and then I'll tell you how to practice it. All right? And but I'm only going to show it once, because you can rewind and I don't have to keep belaboring this process. So, okay, so let's first talk about the numbers of the strings. A lot of people think positionally of these strings instead of pitch, and we need to think in terms of pitch. That the lower the pitch, the lower the string. So this is actually considered your bottom string, and this is your top string, because this is of a higher pitch. And so they count from top to bottom: first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And so we'll use those as references, and I'll also try to incorporate the string name as we go through that. So we're going to build a scale out of a G chord. And we'll start with the low G note, which in this case is done with my second finger. And you can figure out what fingers are most comfortable for you. It's not significant per se. So it starts on this G note, and I'm going to illustrate the scale using my index finger first to show where the notes are. And the first note is this low G tone, and it's going to be on the sixth string, the low E string, 3rd fret. The next tone is the 5th string, A. It's an open string. And then the 3rd tone is here, which is your B. All right, and so that would be the 2nd fret, 5th string. And then your next tone would be here, which is the 3rd fret, 5th string, and that's an A string. And then you go to an open, which is a D, because this was a C here, just so you recall. We have an A, B, C, now we're in D. And then the next tone would be the 2nd fret, 4th string, and then up here at the 4th fret, 4th string, so there on your D string. And then an open, which is a G, that's your 3rd string. Then the next tone is your 2nd fret. And then the next tone after that would be on your 4th fret. And then your 5th fret. And then the next, we're going to go to the B string, which is the 2nd string. And that tone is going to be on the 3rd fret. And this next string would be on the 5th fret. And then we'll go here, which is your 1st string, the high E. And it would be the 2nd fret. And your last tone would be the 3rd fret. And that's a complete 2-octave scale building out of this G chord. Same chord. I just do mine differently, and I'm trying not to mess you up. So practice that backwards and forwards, and practice slowly. A lot of people want to get in a hurry. My advice, practice slowly, and you'll speed up as time goes by. So I'll illustrate it one more time. Okay, so that was the illustration on building a scale out of a G chord. And so that would tell you what key you're in. So if you're in the 1st position, and remember my capo represents the 1st position for a standard tuned guitar. There's G, that chord, that's a G tone. Then I could, if someone said the song was in the key of G, I would use this scale. And I would use that and the very notes to find the melody in the key of G. And it's an easy thing. You have to be willing to memorize it. Once you can play it forward and backwards, then you could practice playing along with some songs. You could record someone on your phone, ask them to sing a song in the key of G, and you could practice at home doing things like that. Now, the other beautiful thing about this scale is that it's movable. So if you will just pretend, you're not playing with me, let's pretend that my guitar is tuned in a standard tuning, so open would be G. And someone says, well, I want to play an A. They would use the capo transposition chart, or they would know one way or the other. And they would put their capo on the 2nd fret. And I like to keep my capo moderately close to the fret I'm barring off. and then they would do that scale again. And now that is in the key of A. And so you could work with that. And as I had indicated before, you're welcome to email me or message on the YouTube channel questions you might have. I won't allow rude comments to stay up there, like I had said before. But you're certainly welcome to ask any questions, and I'll help you if I can. And also, I'd be happy to if you give me your email address and ask for it. I have 2 charts that I would be happy to send you. One is, and they're free. I'm not charging for anything like that. One is a CAPO chart that I've created years ago, and I'd be happy to send you a copy of that. And also I have what I call a key transposition chart. I'd be happy to send that to you, and it's explained. The directions are on the charts, and they're pretty easy to use. My wife uses them quite a bit. She's an intelligent gal, but she just learned to play guitar the last year or 2, and she does really well with all that. So if as a beginner, she can figure all that out from those charts. So feel free to ask for that. And I haven't yet, but I am going to work on it. My goal is sometime this week. I will create a chart of this scale and a diagram of the scale, so that you can look at that if you get tired of trying to follow it on the video. Either way, and the same thing, if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to send you a diagram of that as well. So in the meantime, have some fun and don't be afraid to develop your guitar playing skills. Lord bless you.